Okay, so this kind of chapter is quite an interesting chapter, and there isn't really much in the way of new material. It just gives a set of spreadsheets used for business decisions. And in fact, most of those spreadsheets are already created. So the main thing I've done for this week is just put all these spreadsheets together in kind of one overall spreadsheet. So having said that, what I'm going to talk about a little bit for the business introduction, I'm just going to talk about the spreadsheet modeling in general, some advantages, some disadvantages, and then I'll create videos for the exercises where there is actually some kind of work to do and isn't just kind of a pre-done template. Okay, so when we're building models in Excel, there's generally a process we follow. We need to understand our business. We need to be able to kind of put it into practice in a spreadsheet. And in my experience, both in business and academia, is most spreadsheet models kind of start off quite simple, a little bit of simple reporting on data. For example, maybe aggregating sales by region, and then they gradually get more and more complex as time goes on. But the disadvantage of that, of course, is that some of these spreadsheets become um, not very maintainable, difficult to understand, not properly documented, and quite often can cause problems in business. So let's just start off with a brief history of spreadsheets. So we have 1979, and this was VisiCalc for the Mac 2, not the Math 2, and you can see we already have um, this kind of very standard letters across the top, numbers on the bottom, sheet format, the ability to add functions in the sheet and alter items in the sheet. And this was kind of a major application for the Apple Mac because it's something the competitors didn't have. This was as early as 1979. Now, I don't know if I've never used Lotus 123 in practice. By the time I entered the business world, Excel had pretty much taken over. But Lotus 123 was probably, one of the first mass market spreadsheets. It was the first one for the PC. It was released in 1983. And the main thing, this was the time when the IBM PC was becoming the computer of choice for businesses. There's a lot of chaos in the 1980s with lots of different computers. And this really positioned PCs as serious business machines. It had additional features that VisiCalc didn't have. And it lasted a while, but finally got killed off by Excel in around 2013. Okay, this is Microsoft Excel. I think I've got a very old version of Microsoft Excel here, and it was released in '85. Strangely, Microsoft released it on the Mac first. Maybe Lotus 123 was just too dominant on the PC, so they wanted to test it out in a different environment. But it released in the PC 2 years later, and given Microsoft power, Microsoft's ability to bundle it with operating systems, this has become the de facto standard and is bundled with Microsoft Office. So the current Excel version, it's a very powerful data analysis tool. We can build complex models, we can build formulas, we can integrate with different sources of data, whether it's data from the web, whether it's data from text files, databases. There's also an increasing focus on, there's Office 365, which is a cloud version of Office. Increasing focus on cloud computing and utilizing Excel on the cloud. Of course, the advantage of that is it gives companies a little bit more control over features they can give their employees, and allows a certain degree of implementing processes. The most interesting thing I thought when I kind of taught this course for the first time, which I'd never used before, was dynamic array formulas, because these only arrived in like 2019, and it used to be using Excel arrays in Excel was just very fiddly and very difficult, like selecting cells, pressing Control Shift, and things like that. And it's become the use of functions with arrays has been a lot more intuitive, and I've utilized that in this class. So it's a relatively powerful, Excel has been a relatively powerful data analysis tool. But, and just be aware, because this is very much my personal opinion. This is definitely not going to be on the exam. You know, we talk about big data. Excel is medium-sized data, but large kind of terabytes of data, some modern data sets. For example, social media databases, online databases, transactional data really can't be used in Excel. The size of the data is relatively limited. One thing, the analysis tool pack has not changed for like 20 years. And that makes teaching this class difficult because the actual statistics functionality in Excel is very, very poor. And I've kind of thought that's strange because I mean, Microsoft, the main statistical programming language R, Microsoft bought the main supplier of software that they have a background in Python. So it should be relatively easy for Microsoft to improve the statistics and analytics functionality, but I guess they've just never bothered doing that. VBA, when I started work in commercial, 1997, I think, I used Visual Basic. And VBA is just the old version of Visual Basic, which was actually put out to grass about 10 to 15 years ago. It's still relatively powerful, but as a programming language, you know, it's not properly object oriented. It's object oriented, but not properly object oriented. It's a little bit out on an island where most people use Python for scripting. So it's kind of a little bit outdated, though it's still relatively powerful. Um, there seems to be more of a trend now in industry to go to cloud computing and then dashboards to simplify it, as I said, on massive data sets. So whether that will completely preclude the use of Excel, I doubt it. But it may be now that the use of dashboards, companies see that better rather than having their employees fiddling around with Excel and potentially introducing errors. So having like strongly validated data dashboards. There's increasing competition from free competitors such as Google Sheets and OpenOffice. And again, not taking, doesn't do exactly the same as Excel, but maybe some segment of the Excel functionality, the summary and the visualization. We have the kind of the business productivity tools. We have things like Power BI and Tableau. So here's a few I thought were just interesting discussion articles. One was kind of more positive than the other one. I'm not going to read through these articles, but the first one was saying, hey, we're in this era of big data. Um, Excel has been the traditional choice for data analysis, but it maybe can't cope quite as well with some of these big data applications. We have Power BI. So he talks a little bit still about the importance of Excel, how it still has a certain segment of the market without competition. So this is kind of quite a pro Excel article, but it notes that general business intelligence systems are beginning to chip away at that market and take some of that functionality. And the second one, I thought this was interesting for the Wall Street Journal. And this is about how companies are trying to reduce their reliance on spreadsheets because it can actually be a little bit difficult utilizing spreadsheets. Um, and it can introduce errors. The idea is that you have most of your analytics done by dedicated teams who can chat with dedicated people to test the work rather than have people, you know, ad hoc programming tools in Excel. Consider Excel is, you know, too much of a almost an amateur's tool. So this is a nice discussion. Doesn't really make any conclusions, but it kind of says, you know, some of the issues with using Excel and typing in wrong numbers on spreadsheets, and then gives a bit of advice about what you want to do, perhaps in terms of having solutions that do not use Excel instead. So this is just like a slightly more um, negative article. But even this one, just like go the last line, says that the executives are unsure about whether Excel will actually completely vanish. Okay, so the final little thing, I just said the range of the chapter, there is this range of Excel models to read through. And I said most of them, they're actually, the model is pre-built. It's not like I have to, you know, you're not given data, you have to do it yourself. So I'm not going to create as many as extended videos into the week, but I'll try and give a brief introduction to some of the models. And I'll go through examples, for example, for the what if analysis. What's quite interesting is some of the models, for example, the location assignment, actually look forward to subsequent chapters on optimization, where we've got business decisions and we're solving what we call optimization models, i.e., trying to maximize or minimize a criterion. For example, the shortest path to different locations in order to make a business decision. So that's it. I'll keep it relatively brief this week because this really isn't a technical chapter. And we've already talked in the discussion so much about spreadsheets. I just wanted to kind of give you a little bit of opinion there and some discussion on the current state of spreadsheets. Okay.